What is up, diehards? Wes Monell in the building for AWOL Sports, joined by Paul Durfee and Josh Riley, talking NBA. Who's playing? Who's sitting? We'll take a peek at the playoffs and compare a couple of point guards.
Hey, what up, Josh? What up, Paul? How's it going, guys?
Doing the best we can, living in the age of the pandemic, trying to stay sane.
For real, I'm stir crazy. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, same. Crazy times. Just really curious how this whole NBA thing's going to shake out. It's going to be interesting.
Hey, and that's what we're going to get to the bottom to. But not going to lie, you guys know I got injured, hurt my Achilles. And when there's no hoop to watch, no sports to watch, you kind of you go stir crazy, you kind of think a little too much. And I've been reminiscing, man. I'm 33, got injured, first major surgery. And then I'm kind of reminiscing of my old playing days. And I don't know, it's crazy. I had never had a surgery before. I don't know about you guys, but Paul, I remember we go way back and we used to play one-on-one all the time. What did we play to?
Oh, man, playing to 100. And then all day at the gym, just playing whatever, playing 100 and then playing horse afterwards and do the same the next day, rinse, repeat all summer. So, yeah, it makes you really appreciate the days when you could run up and down the court all day and not be sore the next day.
Or the next week.
Man. And Josh, what were you saying, man? You go to the court, you go from one game to the next.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing is you'll go with your boys and you would probably start out because maybe there was 5 of you, so you couldn't get a game, so you just play 21, and then some stranger would show up, you're like, hey, you want to run threes? And you run threes, and other people show up, and it's 4s, and it's 5s, and then people leave, and it's back to down to 4s and 3s, or back to 21 or horse. But it was just always finding something to just keep playing and not having to leave. I remember even some of the best things is finding one of those little kiddie courts and having a little dunk contest on those courts out there. And so I miss those days, just being able to just run around and hoop all day, and like Paul was saying, just rinse and repeat the next day. All summer long.
To be a young hooper again. Or just an athlete, just being active. All right, fellas, I know we got a lot of NBA to talk about. We've had a break, so have they. But I think we all want to get back to some of that normalcy.
Any semblance of normalcy will be fine. I mean, being able to watch The Last Dance helped a little bit because I was kind of on the edge of not being able to see any basketball play out. So seeing the news about them wanting to restart the season and everything was some really great news to hear for sure. And then, it's just reading about how they're trying to figure all that out with the logistics and everything, especially surrounding the pandemic. And then not to mention everything that's happened the past couple of weeks with George Floyd and the protest and all that stuff. When I heard about Kyrie talking about not really wanting to go to Orlando because he feels like that's distracting from what's going on with the systemic racism and police brutality. I didn't really agree with that. I mean, I see where he's coming from, but I feel like that's kind of something that we as a country need right now, is a sense of normalcy. And it's kind of like what LeBron said. It shouldn't really affect one way or the other. If anything, it should bring more attention because now you have an opportunity to be on a larger platform. Because, everyone's at home. What are they going to do? They're going to watch basketball games. No one's going anywhere. So what a better opportunity to have an audience to be able to, put your message out there that you want to have off the court while still being able to entertain and give people a sense of, normalcy and distraction from all the heaviness that's going on in the world right now too. So I do see his point when it comes to that, but I I would hope that the players would want to play, because I think also from their standpoint, there is a financial stipulation if they all decide not to play either, because then the league could possibly go into a lockout and they might lose millions of dollars. So it's really tough, because then you could even look at the fact that their families won't be able to come with them when they do go to Orlando, because they're basically going to be sequestered in this bubble that they called it. But I feel like selfishly, for me as a fan, I want to see some basketball, and I want to see the Lakers get that chip. Like, I don't want to wait until next year. I mean, forget having a show with unbiased. I'm biased. I want the Lakers to win the chip, and I feel like this is a good chance for them to do it. Because, I mean, LeBron is still playing like he's 10 years younger, but Father Time is undefeated. So you don't know exactly how much longer he has. So I want him to take advantage of that opportunity right now. And I think he does too. A lot of guys just want to get back to hooping. You know, you talk about like when we were young kids, that's all we wanted to do was just hoop. Like, we didn't want to stay in the house and do homework or anything. Any chance we got, we wanted to play. Like, you were sick, you were cut, put a Band-Aid on it. I'm out back playing again. So I feel like that's a lot of players' mindset. And, I mean, it's going to be really tough between the NBPA and, you know, the guys. I think a bunch of players supposed to get on a Zoom call tomorrow or tonight, I think, earlier.
Tonight.
And kind of talk about where they stand. So, yeah, I hope they're able to work something out and be able to resume the season, because I think that's what the country needs and what sports fans need as a whole in this time. Something to deviate from all the craziness that's been going on. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So I really hope it is able to work out.
That's pretty fair. Pretty fair to say, not only as a Laker fan, but as an NBA fan. I'm a Bulls fan. Not like I care about the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I did care about the Last Dance. Thank you very much. But yeah, man, I hear you. I get it. It's a unique time for everybody, never before seen. And sure, guys like Carmelo Anthony, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, they've expressed the risk. They're not wrong.
Right.
They're not wrong when it comes to the risk. We know that. They know that. Everyone knows that. I mean, to be honest, I think it comes down to what LeBron said. Exactly what you just brought up, Josh. You know, LeBron thinks he can hoop at the same time as be a social activist. You know, he created a group for voting rights. He's always been someone involved, and I appreciate that. I appreciate LeBron on and off the court. I respect him, not just because the Lakers are the 1 seed. Kyle Kuzma wants to ball and says not everyone agrees with Kyrie Irving. We know that too. I mean, that's obvious. You know, it's not just Kyrie though. Dwight Howard's even said something. Mentioned Melo. We see guys that we know want to hoop that are in the thick of things when it comes to playoff basketball. Russell Westbrook speaking to crowds. Giannis Antetokounmpo speaking to crowds. It's cool. It's all good. And I think the NBA, I don't think they're being only business minded. I think the NBA's been great when it comes to their players. I think they've always been a good league taking care of their players. Prior to this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, going into a bubble, first of all, who doesn't want to go to Disney World? Second of all, they're trying to keep you as safe as possible, putting you in a bubble, testing, all the above. I don't see anything wrong with the effort on the NBA's part, Adam Silver and company. And, I mean, maybe if you're a bubble team, you don't want to, I mean, because what I'm hearing is the Portland Trailblazers, who have to play for an 8 spot in a tournament with 6 other teams. That's what I'm hearing is Melo maybe not interested. Age plays a factor.
Dame said the same thing.
Yeah.
And they're like 4 games out of the 8th seed, I think. So it's pretty unlikely they even get a shot at the playoffs.
So like, I don't know. I think if you're a team that has a legitimate chance to win a title, you want to play some ball. I don't think those players want to sit out. For the record, Josh, you're a 1 seed. Paul, you're Sixers. Only 2 losses at home this year or something like that.
Yeah.
Which I think that's similar to the Lakers, by the way. But, I mean, your 2 teams could be on a collision course. I'm curious what you think.
How do we get that crowd noise to just be like geared towards Philadelphia? Like, what is it about that?
2K crowd noise.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's yeah. The Sixers' home road splits is pretty ugly. I think they have the 2nd most road losses of any team in the whole Eastern Conference. So it's been one of those weird years. But just about what Josh said earlier, I think that's a really good point about how I think during this time it's a really good opportunity for players to use their platform to kind of get messages across, because the whole world's going to be watching, so they're really going to soak in anything they say or try to do. I think it's a really cool opportunity, because it's all about creating conversations so people can talk about it and try to promote change. So I think it's all like what LeBron said is spot on. So as far as that goes, and then as far as playing, I don't know. Like, I can see why certain players, like, I don't know if it's a combination of a lot of different things, but I think motivation's a big factor too. Like, you're forcing them to come back after all these months off, live in a bubble, basically playing an empty gym with, other teams. It's like, I think some teams are like, oh, well, is it really worth going through all this trouble just to try to finish a season? So I think I can kind of, especially if you're on the outside looking in as far as the playoff picture. So I can understand that a little bit. And then it's like for the top teams, like what Kyrie's saying is, hey, if there's a lot of players that don't play, then, is it gonna taint the actual, like, the quality of the ball that's being played, because, not all the top players are going to be there. So then for like whoever wins it is going to be like, oh, well, you won in a lockout season where there was no fans and, not all the players even decided to come up to show up and play. So it's like, there's just so many factors and so much weirdness around this whole situation that it almost, it's going to be really interesting to see who shows up, who's motivated, what the quality of the ball is going to be like. Is it going to be, noticeable difference in effort as far as defense, or just, in general? Are they just going to be going through the motions? Or, I'm sure there's going to be certain teams that are, really motivated to play. But then again, if there's a bunch of teams or like players that aren't showing up, it's like kind of like, oh, well, okay, like, thanks, But yeah, that's just kind of some of my thoughts on it. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, everything's been crazy. And we've thrown out crazy, weird, unique. I don't know if y'all saw what I saw about possibly if players sit out and their teams are still in, replacement players. Like, what that means, I think, is, G League.
Two-way players.
Yeah. And look, let's talk lockout. All right. Not kind of a lockout with players, if this comes to fruition, that don't play. We've only seen this in football. I haven't seen this in hoop. And I mean, I think football is easier to have a next man up mentality. Not that, it's easier to play football or easier, than basketball. I just mean in a way of, in hoop, man, if you got game, you're on the floor. And if you have a niche or a specialty, that's cool. Do your thing when you're on the court and getting those minutes, but you're going to get exposed if you don't have an all-around game or if there's mismatches. Look, I'm not going to pick on an MVP that's probably a future Hall of Famer, Steph Curry. we see that man get picked on in the playoffs. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the quality of ball, kind of to piggyback off of you, Paul, that a lot of that matters on who's on the floor. So I don't think that's going to be a problem with the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks, the top teams like that going for the chip. I don't. And in general, if they're in the playoffs, I don't think we're going to see people sit out. Like, if the Blazers make it, I don't think Damian Lillard is gonna chill on the sideline. That I don't think he has that in him.
Yeah. I feel like competitiveness will eventually win out, especially if they do find out they're in the playoffs and go deeper into that. I think, that competitive nature. You don't become a pro athlete without being insanely competitive. So I think that would ultimately win out at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think those 8 games are kind of hopefully will be kind of a springboard to not only get them back up to speed and, get them in shape again, but also kind of like maybe give them that hunger and that drive again. Like, okay, basketball's back. Like, let's go. Like, give them a few games to kind of just give that mojo back and that swagger back. So hopefully that'll all help. But like you said about replacement players, I think, hey, like I said, it's going to be a lot of opportunity maybe for certain teams that, maybe have players sit out. Because, we really don't know who's going to sit out or if this is just a big thing that he's going or if there's actually 25, 40, I don't know, players actual, are thinking about not playing. So could be, it's going to be a lot of opportunity for guys who don't usually get to play maybe. And, that might actually help the quality of the basketball because those guys are going to be playing their ass off, So
that's a really good point.
Yeah, and another thing is with basketball, your G League team doesn't generally, see much NBA time or NBA action at all. So maybe it might be something like baseball where your minor league system actually is a big part of how well your major league team does because those players are feeding into your team and that's how you build a good team. But in basketball, you don't really see that as much. Like, the good guys, top guys get drafted, they just go straight to the NBA. They don't really go through the G League. So it might be actually interesting to see, hey, which teams actually have a decent G League team and actually care about, recruiting further down those 2 rounds that the NBA draft is and, things like that. So maybe some of those aspects might come into play.
That's true. And I know, look, we're all diehards. But the reality of even so, if that came about, which G League guys are really getting minutes, and if they are getting that burn in playoff basketball, which would surprise me, but if they are, probably limited roles. I wouldn't think more than 20 minutes a game.
Mm-hmm.
But, we've been surprised before. Who was Kendrick Nunn? That's a cool story, man, over in Miami. But so it's a good point, Paul. But I am curious, which role players, if star players sit out in playoff basketball, which role players step up and maybe show not only us but themselves, oh shoot, they had that in them? A little bit more dog in them, a little bit more skill, maybe a little bit more confidence to change. Maybe it changes their career path. Maybe someone's really got game that didn't get that opportunity, that shine, and maybe they just seize the moment and kind of do their thing. What do you think about that, Josh?
If I was in their shoes, that's an opportunity that I would pounce on immediately. You think about it, a lot of times these guys they got so much pressure, especially when they come in the league, trying to prove themselves and, secure a spot on the team, knowing that, they might have this superstar player playing ahead of them who is not going anywhere anytime soon. And they got a guy behind them who's breathing down their neck. And so it's hard to kind of focus on bettering yourself. And so I feel like that might be an opportunity, playing in an empty gym. So you don't have people jeering at you and, people talking crap. You don't have to really look over your shoulder or worry about the superstar player who's going to replace you if you mess up. it's almost kind of like a can't lose situation, because even if things do go bad, you could theoretically be like, well, LeBron didn't want to play in this one, so there's no one else going to step up. It was me. I did everything that I could. There was a pandemic. We got stuck in this. Like, the excuses that could fly off the shelf, are endless. But I feel like, kind of like what you were saying, Wes, it's just a great opportunity to, if nothing else, work on their game on that kind of stage and maybe see something in themselves that they may not have known was there, and change their whole career trajectory from there. So I kind of like what Paul was saying, the level of competition and intensity might go up, because if you have a bunch of guys out there trying to prove themselves, as opposed to guys who are like, well, I'm concerned about this, or I'm concerned about this money or this social issue, all valid, of course. But if you go and have guys who just have to try to prove themselves, like we did on the playground, like just always trying to do that, I think that might turn out to be something that's actually really good for the league. We don't know. So I think that's something that would be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. Also, you look at those free agents that possibly pick up the J.R. Smiths and Jamal Crawfords, and then those guys that might have another 15th opportunity to try to prove themselves. They always come and then leave and then come back. Like, it's
to be a journeyman in the NBA.
Yeah.
And Paul, I know you got your eye on some matchups when it comes to playoff basketball. What we keep alluding to, what we keep talking about, actual action on the floor again. What are you looking at, man?
Well, I'm gonna give you a matchup in the East and then one in the West, just to kind of, see what's going on. But I'm not trying to be biased since I'm a Sixers fan, but I feel like the kind of the best matchup in the East would be the Heat and the Sixers in the first round, because I'm looking at the Bucks and the Raptors got the 1 and the 2 pretty much settled in, and then Brooklyn and I forget who is the 8 seed right now, but I mean, they're so far off that those aren't even going to be competitive first round matchups. But so that leaves Boston and Indiana, or Philly or Miami, or maybe it depends on those could flip flop. But I look at that one and I think that one could be a great series. I mean, you got the Miami, who kind of came out of nowhere a little bit this year. Like you said, you just mentioned Kendrick Nunn. And Bam Adebayo's had a big breakout year so far. Jimmy Butler's kind of really helped those young guys grow, and it's cool to see a team like that, that just plays hard every night, especially going into like we just talked about, like as far as the motivation levels, that's a type of team that could make noise because they're going to play hard every night. So yeah, Jimmy Butler against his old foes in the Sixers, I think that'd be a really fun series, and a lot of back and forth. They've had even this season, it's been there's been some really close, good games, and now both teams are going to be fully healthy as well, because Butler had I think a little toe injury before everything happened, and then Simmons had the back issue, so you're going to get a full squad, and I think it'd be a really fun matchup. And then in the West, I'm looking at if things play out right, you could see a little Houston OKC action, which would be really fun also, because you got the whole flip flop of Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, and then OKC's not even supposed to be competitive this year, and then all of a sudden big leaps from Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, making big, and then Danilo Gallinari's had a really good year. So I think Chris Paul's really helped stabilize them, and they're 40 and 24 or something. It's just, so it's crazy to see that, and Houston's right there too, and just to see their style of play, like it's going to be interesting to see how Houston plays that small ball lineup, when going into the playoffs, and how that's going to match up with different teams and how they're going to handle that, because they're going to be playing fast and they're going to be shooting a lot of threes. So it's going to be fun to see. So I think that would be an interesting matchup. Russell going back to OKC and then Chris Paul, back to Houston. So those are kind of the two like dream matchups I'm looking at that hopefully maybe come together in the first round.
And PJ Tucker's playing the 5 for Houston.
Small ball. Playing tiny balls, what they're doing.
Oh man.
Yeah, PJ at the 5.
I think Robert Covington's a 5 too. I don't know. He might be a little taller, but
yeah. Mike D'Antoni, right?
The West is so big. Yeah.
But yeah, Paul, to touch on your matchups there, man. Miami looks pretty strong. Here's the thing with Miami and Philly. They usually say the playoff series does not start until someone wins on the road. Those teams don't lose at home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of these playoff teams, I don't know when these series are going to start. I think a lot of them being fresh. But here's the thing. Is there really a home court advantage anymore? I mean, if they're going to play in a bubble in the same spot in an empty gym like we do on a random Tuesday or on the weekend, I mean, I don't know what to expect. There's not going to be any home and away splits anymore. So, I mean, does that change the makeup of a team playing in a neutral ground?
It'll almost show their true colors maybe in a sense because it'll tell us like who's going to play hard no matter if there's fans in the stands, no matter, what the situation is. It's like, hey, empty gym, I don't care. We'll see who's really ready to play.
Yeah, you'll see who's just willing to hoop just for the love of hooping and who's want to do that for the limelight and all that. Like, I feel like that's where you'll see that difference there for sure.
That's true. And, I mean, I got to ask you, both of you, who's the better point guard? I'm not just talking today, but career. Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook?
Oh, that's really?
I really don't know what you guys think on that.
It's tough because they're two such different breeds of point guard.
Oh,
Like, they're not – Chris Paul is the prototypical old school point guard, pass first, set everybody up. Westbrook is with the new school, and so it's – but he did average a triple-double for 3 seasons, so it's which is just absolutely insane. But I would have to – it's funny because I actually had this conversation a couple weeks ago with some coworkers because they were talking about, is Ben Simmons a top 5? And when I gave my list, I had him out, but I had Chris Paul in there. And she lost her mind. But I was like, Ben Simmons can't shoot. But that's another topic for another time.
Paul.
Yeah. I love Ben Simmons, I do, but he's got to get that outside shot. But I have to give it to Chris Paul, not only because of what he's done for his career, even though he's, never gotten to the finals or anything, but if you even just look at this year, I was one of those people, when you look at the roster for OKC, I was like, oh, okay, this will be a fun rebuilding year. They'll maybe get the lottery, come out next year to start building that up. But then you put Chris Paul there, and he didn't even really want to be there. Like, there was all this speculation. And yet he turned them into this playoff team, and he elevated everybody around him, which is what a good point guard is supposed to do. Westbrook doesn't always do that. Like, he's ball dominant, Harden is ball dominant, and so it's tough to kind of see if that works all the time. Fortunately, it does, because in the 7 seconds or less D'Antoni offense, that always seems to kind of work because everyone's jacking up shots. Everyone's going to have more opportunities for attempts. But, yeah, overall, though, I would have to – and I love Westbrook to death, but I would have to give it to Chris Paul just for everything he's done over his whole career and the longevity of it and still being effective this late into his career. I mean, the dude caught an oop in the All-Star game. I had to watch that clip like maybe 15 times because I wasn't sure if it was him or somebody else. So it's like he's still affecting everything on the court. So, yeah, I have to go with CP3.
Paul?
Yeah, I'm with you same way. I'd lean slightly towards him as well. Like I think you really brought up a good point at the end there about longevity, and I think this question was about kind of their careers in general. So I just feel like he's done it for so long, and like you said, he's the prototypical point guard who elevates his teammates, and like you said, Westbrook doesn't always do that. So. And as good as Westbrook is, as gifted as he is, he's crazy gifted. But I mean, I guess it depends too on like who you have on your team as far as the personnel. Like I know it's like if you don't have another ball dominant player, you need Westbrook to kind of be that guy. Then maybe he fits better. But if you got other guys who maybe are more ball dominant, maybe you want Chris Paul on your team more. So it kind of maybe depends on that a little bit as well. But yeah, plus the stroke, man. Chris Paul's got a sweet stroke. That 3-point, like I don't know. I think of Westbrook, and he's done some great things, but he's still shooting threes. Why does he still shoot threes? Can't even 30%, man. Like that just kills your team, man. When you do that. So I don't know. I just feel like Chris Paul's just the smarter player. If I'm thinking of a big game, who I'd want, it's him.
For sure.
Oh, without question. Yeah.
I respect those opinions. I 100%.
You're about
disagree.
to play devil's advocate, aren't you?
I disagree, and that's not just
the way you set that up. I was like, he's about to go the other way.
You hear them, Russ? You hear them right now, man? Come on, you went to UCLA too. You would think Josh would like you.
I do. I love him.
I'm playing. I'm going with a guy that he's Oscar Robertson Jr., MVP, gone to the finals. I've seen CP3 underachieve a lot. If I have to go back to CP3's first team as his best years, that's not a compliment coming from me as far as your career. I mean, you talk about 7 seconds or less, you're right. It's probably better for Westbrook. But, man, I'd rather have 7 seconds or less with Westbrook than 20 seconds out of a 24-second shot clock of CP3 being too alpha. Man, I get it. You're not wrong. I play point guard. I was a traditional point guard. I love the point guard position. I respect Chris Paul. He's just never been on one of my favorites list. You'll never hear me say Chris Paul is the best point guard in the game any year of his career. That's just one man's opinion. He's fun. If Chris Paul allowed his teammates to be more involved in a way of handling, and he's just too much of a dribble addict for me. And I know you can say that about Russ, but I think his is more of in an athletic sense, as opposed to Chris Paul just be like, no, you're going to set this pick when I want you to set this pick, and you're going to cut when I point at you to cut. You're going to listen to me on what I say rather than, yo, we're on the floor, let's hoop. And it just bothers me a lot. His play style bothers me. I respect his game, his longevity for sure. I just will never say Chris Paul's an all-time great point guard. I may not say that about Russell Westbrook, but I have Westbrook higher on that list, if that makes sense. Here, before we cut out, give you an old school example. I would take John Stockton over Chris Paul. How about that?
That's good because I kind of.
He's been to 2 finals. He had the mailman, but CP3 had Blake Griffin. I mean, I'm not saying they're the same. I'm just going along the lines of Utah made 2 finals, man, and CP3 had some teams. He had Doc Rivers, bro. I don't know how the Clippers didn't have one finals appearance.
I mean, you could look at it again, too. You could look at it at personnel. I mean, CP3, I mean, yes, I say you can elevate people, but you can only elevate people so much, really. And with the Jazz, like Stockton had Malone, He had Jeff Hornacek. He had Byron Russell. Even Greg Ostertag. Like, he had a pretty loaded squad of guys. The thing with Stockton, though, that I forgot about until
You said Greg Ostertag.
yeah, I did say Greg Ostertag, just to show y'all I didn't forget that he actually played. I couldn't stand him, but he played. But
I was just saying Antoine Carr, Adam Keefe.
Yeah, hey, But the thing with Stockton, though, that always blew me away was just, I think there was a few years in the league, he was averaging like 15 assists a game and leading the league in steals and still able to like drop 20 or 30 on you on any given night. This dude that looks like an accountant who just bought an NBA uniform somewhere and got lost on his way to the arena, who's just balling out, So I think that's still so tough, though, because I feel like CP3 and John Stockton do have a lot of similarities, though. But I would have to give it to Stockton just by a little bit. If for nothing else, just for his consistency. I mean, Chris Paul led the league a lot of years in assists too, but not like Stockton did.
All-time steals leader, all-time assists leader, 2 finals appearances. Paul, who you got, man, on that?
Well, yeah, that's tough. Man, I don't know. Like, obviously, I watched more Chris Paul than John Stockton, but I've obviously seen plenty of his games from back in the day. But I don't know. I mean, the thing I like about, and I'll go back to the Westbrook point. The thing I like about both Chris Paul and John Stockton is they were efficient from the field. So that's another knock I have on Westbrook is just his usage rate is out of control as far as like the amount of shots he took per game, because he's always in the low 40s as far as field goal percentage, barely scratching 30 from the 3-point line. And then you got these guys like Chris Paul and John Stockton are shooting nearly 50% from the field every year, close to 40, if not 40 from 3, and 90, close to 90 from the line. So I think that type of efficiency I can really appreciate, and I think that's kind of what really helps your team more than just not that Westbrook was a stat chaser, but just certain things. It's like you shoot 40 times a game, you get your triple double, but is that really the best thing for your team, kind of thing? So I don't know. It's tough because, like Josh said too, they're so different, just like so different. So, but yeah, I think just with the assists and the passing, and I don't know, it's just those two are so close. But I guess I would give a slight edge to Stockton as well. But I mean, that's a hard one.
3-0 old school. Woo! That's what I like.
Stockton too? Yeah.
That's what I like. Awesome. Bad. Awesome, fellas. Any last word?
Ball.
What time is it? Who?